Welcome to the Grad School vlog as we talk about the journey into computer science. So one thing that I've realized in discrete structures, which is dealing with Booleans, dealing with recursion, and wrestling with just a wide array of intangible topics, probability counting. I've always thought counting was great, but this type of counting takes it to a whole nother level. But this is what I realized. So in grad school, particularly on the track that I'm in, the reading is extremely important. So the structure of it is reading first and lecture second, which actually it's hard, it's challenging because you're learning by reading, and then it's reinforced, emphasized Q&A, insight provided by lecture, as well as repetition to help ensure that you have learned what you have read. So it actually works really well. It's hard that you're learning by reading, and that's something I'm not used to from undergrad, where it seemed like you would learn from lecture and you'd reinforce by reading, and not everybody did all the reading all the time, or even ever, perhaps. But you'd learn enough in lecture to where you probably could do okay in the class with minimal reading. However, with grad school, you're really reading every word. At least you should be, because if you don't, you're not going to learn everything. And what I'm finding is that the exams and the projects and the homework assignments are very comprehensive. So if you haven't read it yet, you'll probably be reading it then. So that's one of the major differences. It's essentially reading a lot at a very slow pace, a pace that allows you to truly learn and memorize what you're reading. And just as an example, in discrete structures, and right now I'm using a text that it's called Zybooks, and it's actually great. It really is good. It's interactive, and it asks you, there are different challenges and activities throughout. So you'll read, and you'll try, and you'll pass, and then you'll continue to read, and it's actually scored. So you'll have a score at the end of each section, and of course you need to get all the points to progress, and so you have to get 100%. But if you don't finish the reading, it will be known, and it will affect your grade in the class, because that is also part of the point total, is completing the reading. But it works really well. But back to my example, in many cases, it will take me sometimes on a very complex topic, I may read one paragraph for an hour or more, because it's not just reading it, it's reading it, it's thinking about it, it's trying it, it's referencing back into prior sections that you've read and making sure you really get it. So the one point I want to make is, in grad school, you really have to be prepared to master the topics, which means you got to learn it all. And you may not remember it all, but to get through the class and to get an A, which in grad school you really want to try to sail through with A's, and it's not much of it's like sailing on, in the midst of a mighty storm. But you want to, of course, do well in grad school. The better you do, the more opportunities unlock. There are a lot of companies that are concerned with the grades that you have, and with higher grades, it'll unlock more opportunities. And not only that, if you want to continue on towards a PhD, for example, the grades are very important. Scholarships are performance-based in many cases, not always, but there are many that are academic-based. So the higher grades will open up more doors as far as scholarships go. And there are certainly scholarships that are need-based as well. But mostly everything does require that you also have good grades. And internships, those opportunities also often are contingent upon grades. So you've got to do well, and to do well, you've got to read it all. So basically, I've readjusted my expectation on homework from maybe 3 or 4 hours a day to, the way I look at it now is, what time will I not be doing homework? And maybe I carve out a couple hours a day, 2 or 3 hours a day, where I'm not doing homework, and the rest of it, it's doing homework. I wake up, I do homework. I go to sleep doing homework. So I do have a little bit of time though, so I'm enjoying it, but the pace is rigorous. You look forward to the breaks, and that's what I'm about to do, is to dig into actually reading for computer science, focused on Python right now, learning some fairly advanced strategies with Python programming and problem solving. So that will take me most of today. and then I pivot to a written assignment in discrete structures, which will probably take me about 20 hours to complete, which I need to complete in 2 days. So that's a bit of an intense crunch, I should say. I'll be crushed, so it is a crush, but it's also crunch time. So hopefully some of it won't take as long as I'm expecting, but I kind of budget about 20 hours for these written discrete structures assignments that are very comprehensive and deep thinking, and sometimes you have to stare at questions countless times and take a break from them and come back to them and move on to others and circle back again to eventually see the light and to solve them. So yeah, that's basically life as a grad student. It's pretty intense, and especially with what's going on around the world, it's a lot harder right now to learn than in the past in terms of being detached from campuses, and a lot is done remotely. And so there are some new challenges. Also, it saves a lot of time. There's less commuting time, which you can certainly apply to studying, but there's a lot more independence that's necessary to do what it takes. So it's manageable. It's actually, I wouldn't say that it's so hard. It's hard, but it's not that it's so hard. It really is just that it takes a lot of time. So if you're committed to it as a full-time job, a rigorous full-time job that takes a lot of hours, I would say it's not the hardest job you could have. It's manageable, but it's time consuming. So it's not something to go into thinking that it'll be just kind of an easy side hobby. In my opinion, it's something you go into as a full-time endeavor. And if you do it as you should, it's not the hardest thing out there. So just to emphasize the point, what makes it hard to me, in my opinion, is how much time it takes. If you enjoy it, the time flies. If you hate it, it would be a tough experience. So it's important to focus on what you enjoy for grad school. Thank you for joining me in this discussion. Goodbye.